so excited.
Time for Two Guys and a Goalie with Dustin Nielsen, Matt Kassian, and the goalie, Joaquin Gage.
All right, 12:04. Two Guys and a Goalie, Nielsen, Gage, and Cass with you, presented to you by GS Construction. And another season, 'tis be upon us here. Setting the industry standard for 50 years with quality, efficiency, safety, driving their success. GS Construction has a foundation built on teamwork, and now they want you to become a part of the team. Visit www.gsconstruction.ca and just click on Ready to Work. You can't miss it. Kind of loads the website, scroll right down, boom, ready to work. Or visit their page at Indeed.ca. And with their Next Up Person program at GS Construction, it's not just a job, it is a career. Gager, I love when the season begins. Tommy and Reed rolling back in from the rink, all the good old stories, and we're back underway in Edmonton with hockey season.
I'm scared. It's with corporate in town. I just got pulled into the back office with corporate and had to go over some stuff. So it was stressful.
We need to realize HR Daddy is here in the end. And I have to reiterate this with him sometimes. He still works for me.
I beg to differ.
He's got his own ideas, but
that's good.
Anyway, let me know if he pisses you off. Let me know.
I had a great chat with your dad. It was awesome. So.
Did he go over the handbook with you?
He was
very proud of that employee handbook.
No, it's too bad because I'm busy today. I got this and I'm missing it out. So that was kind of our meeting.
So that was your meeting.
I had a private meeting with HR Daddy.
Lucky guy. Lucky guy.
I'm moving up the corporate ladder.
Cass, you're lucky you're not around today. How you doing, man?
That sounds terrifying. I would be terrified to get pinned and cornered by HR Daddy. I mean, even if you're not doing anything wrong, like I feel like I would feel like I'm doing something wrong, like just scared to make a misstep, scared to say something wrong, scared that I insult the handbook. Don't want to do that.
This is great.
He's having a meeting right now with like the rest of the staff to go over the employee handbook. Yeah.
Tommy so I gotta tell you guys something here. I got a confession to make. Sort of confession, but I gotta tell you guys something. So, my wife yelled at me the other day. Yelled is a strong word, but I'm going to call it yelling because I didn't go to the Estes. Because I guess I hadn't told her the day, and I kind of forgot the day, and we had other stuff booked that was going on. And then in that evening, like she checked her Instagram, she's like, or actually, sorry, forgive me. It was that afternoon. She went for a workout, and someone at the gym was like, "Hey, are you going to the Estes tonight?" And she was just like, "What's the Estes?" And he's like, "The award show for Edmonton Sports Talk." She's like, "Matt didn't tell me about this." And then she got mad at me later because we already had stuff that I couldn't change. And she's like, "You should have been there. You're supposed to be there. Like, why?" Anyways, she got mad at me for not going to the Estes.
You should have been there, Cass. Yeah. Well, now you know next year's Estes. You must plan. You can bring like my kids were there. Paris Schuler, Matt had his kids there. Yeah. There's a few kids there. Not at the after party, obviously, but at the event itself, it was kid friendly. It was a really nice time. Bring the whole family out next year, Cass.
No, I'll have to. And you know what? I just feel bad about that. So I feel like I disappointed you guys.
You disappointed your wife,
Daddy, and disappointed my wife even more than that, which is rare. I'm like, it doesn't surprise me. I kind of mentioned it to her. I'm like, yeah, we're doing an award show. It's going to be awesome. And I think I had told her, I'm like, yeah, our show's going to be up for an award. And she's like, oh, that's amazing. I'm like, yeah, all the shows are up for the same award.
Not the lock shop, as we found out.
Yeah. But anyways, so I wanted to get that off my chest to you guys and to the nasties that were there. And it's always amazes me. And I actually, I went for coffee with Damon Bunting.
Yes, what a beauty. He was there?
Yeah, we went and grabbed a coffee, and we were just chatting, and he said, and it's so true. He's like, it always surprises me, and it shouldn't at this point, just how in tune or just how involved and engaged the nasties are, like, and that just, you know, and I see it too, and just that story of, you know, someone at the gym walking up to my wife to be like, hey, are you going to the Estes? It brings me so much joy, because I'm just like, this is just so fantastic. It's just a wonderful community with wonderful listeners, and you guys are awesome too, except you, Gager. Everyone else though is awesome, and no, you are awesome too. I love you, buddy. But it's just anyways, so wanted to get that off my chest, and then throw a bone to all the nasties, and that keep being engaged. It's amazing. I love having that happen. It's wonderful and amazing and awesome.
I have to say that Estes 2 is probably going to be pretty damn good.
Oh yeah. I just find it hilarious having, like, I'm picturing your wife on the treadmill and some guy, hey, you going to the Estes? Like, and you go, what?
That is hilarious.
That is hilarious.
That is hilarious to me. Jason in the Duke says, you can bring the kids. It keeps Normology's shirt on. And Normology won exit of the year for his exit of the Nasty Bash, in which his shirt was off and he was swinging in the air, and he'd run out and we'd all cheer that he left, and he'd run back in and do it again. This is like 5 times before he left. So he wins the Esty for exit of the year. And he was sitting on one of the side parts, and he jumps up and he takes off his jacket, and he's got this fanny pack on with a suit, a shirt and a tie. And then he comes out of like the small part and then runs all the way through the main part, like on Price is Right, high-fiving everybody, then comes down, gets up on the stage, and people are like, take your shirt off. And he's like, no, there's children here. It's a family-friendly event, and it was a really good time.
Well,
it was a lot
great.
of fun.
Yeah, that was
way
too much fun.
2 Guys and Goalie was up for award. We did not win it. So the Lock Shop was the only of our original shows that didn't get up.
Really?
So Maddie's sitting here today. We're doing Lock Shop, and I said, "Did Lock Shop have any votes?" And he looks. He goes, "Well, it had 8 fourth place votes, or 3 fourth place, 8 third place, 1 second place, and 1 first place vote." And I was like, "What? Who voted first place for the Lock Shop?" And he looked it up, and it was me. I was the lone first place vote for the Lock Shop. But still, no, it was a really fun time. Estes 2 will be just as good. And who knows, maybe the Stanley Cup makes an appearance at Estes 2. I don't know if Stoff will allow that, but we'll see. We'll see if that's allowed here at some point. All right, lots to get to. Oilers camp is underway. Looks like Amberson's going to get the first crack with Nurse. But let's start with Evander Kane yesterday. We played the Evander Kane availability on the show this morning. To summarize, and go back and listen to it, but Evander Kane basically said he felt something in October. Wasn't great. December, it started to get worse. Then obviously he grinded it out, in and out, kind of the rest of the way. And then I thought the one interesting part was he said some people thought rehab might actually help it in the offseason. It hasn't. He talked to some other players who've gone through it as well and decided that this was the best way to go. 2 sports hernias that he'll have to have operated on. Cass, is this the athletic pubalgia thing?
Yep.
Okay, you went through this.
Yep.
Tell us exactly what that is like to play through, and what was the recovery like for you?
Yeah, well, mine was probably much worse initially than his.
Okay,
I was
right
able to
away,
play
right
3 games. Yeah, I played 3 games after it happened. It came off the ice. It was actually in a fight with Paul Bissonnette that it happened. Felt kind of like a groin pull. Like that's kind of what it felt like. So was able to play the rest of the game. You're icing on the plane. You're kind of like, this isn't good. A little bit of a groin pull, and then it just it got worse and worse and worse. Now the organization wanted me to keep playing, and this was before MRI. Now we thought it was a groin pull, didn't know how bad it was at first, but then it started taking me really 2 days to get 1 day on ice. I'd take 2 days of treatment to be able to skate once. We had tried practicing once or twice, and it was just a no-go. So while we were doing that, got the MRI, saw that it was a sports hernia, it was torn. For those of you that have missed my athletic pubalgia discussion, the scientific name for it, because hernia really is a bad term because it doesn't accurately describe what it is. Basically, you've ripped your groin and or your abdominal muscle off your pubic bone. So at the bottom of your pelvis. And so it was bad. Played 3 games. Tried to fight Zach Kassian in one of those games. One of them was against Vancouver. And, it was at the point in those games where I had to hold my breath to be able to skate. Now, because it was like your abs and your groin, like, so you think that pushing and pulling motion, it's a little bit of both, that core stability in your body. It's both of that. And so when I would step on the ice, I'd have to go and squeeze my abs and hold my breath for the entirety of the shift. So shifts were a little shorter. You couldn't really yell at people. You couldn't really talk unless it was at the face-off because you're holding your breath the whole time and you didn't have anything in that. I think I got in one fight, and that was against Vancouver.
I was going to say, did you fight with this?
I did.
My God, man.
I fought. It was against a guy by the name, I think we were in Minnesota, but it was against Vancouver. Guillaume Desbiens, I think, was the individual. So got in one fight with it, and then I can't remember who the third game was against, but at that point it was just shut it down. Like it was, there was no way. It just, again, like I wasn't practicing, couldn't skate, wasn't doing pregame skates. It's like you do treatment basically from the time you wake up until the time you went home from the rink, and you do that every single day until the game day, where you do treatment up until time to play and then go. And it just wasn't functional. Like it's not. You can't really hit. Same thing, because it's so much tied to your core, like to play physical and to lean on people and to try to dig pucks out of the corner or battle or push or cross check or do anything. You just can't. Now, again, there's different levels of severity, and mine was pretty severe. It was pretty significantly torn. There's different levels of it. And, the first thing when you're exploring it is, okay, how severe is it? Is this something that needs surgical intervention, or is it a minor tear? Because sometimes, and a lot of guys, you'll have, and you'll hear like torn labrum in the shoulder, not the rotator cuff, but a torn labrum. And there's lots of guys that have little tears there, but if you build up the muscles around it, and strengthen everything around it, you can get by in some instances where it's like, okay, you don't necessarily need surgery or need surgery right away. If you keep everything strong, you're going to be okay. You're not at risk for hurting it anymore. That may have been the opinion at the start with Evander Kane, where it's like, okay, it's a tear, but it's a minor tear. We could get by with some rehab. Obviously, things didn't get better, and maybe the team still thought, okay, well, with a full summer of rehab, you should be fine. Clearly Evander Kane felt differently, and he may be right. It may be something where it's at the point where it's like, hey, surgery just makes more sense. Unfortunate for Evander Kane, maybe fortunate for the Edmonton Oilers. That hasn't happened until now, where they're going to have some time from a cap standpoint. But yeah, it's certainly something I think typically with athletic pubalgia, because I saw a bunch of guys go through that injury as well. It's a pretty common one for hockey players. It's not uncommon at all. Generally, at some point, you have to get them surgically repaired. Generally, there's just you put too much stress on that part of your body playing and skating and pushing, and especially for a player that plays physical. So to me, it's not shocking that he would decide to go to the surgery route. I think you can do it now, depending on if it's both sides. If he's got something on both sides, you're looking at in somewhere between 3 to 6 weeks before you can really start playing again. Yeah, I mean, if you guys want me to keep monologuing here, I could tell you about.
No, this has been great. I've been very much enjoyed all of this.
Yeah.
But okay, go ahead, keep going. I was just going to wonder, like, how much to ramp back up. What was that like? What was that like?
Well, you start, it ties in actually. So the story ties in. So this would have been getting a surgery. So the doctor that a lot of guys go to is out of Philadelphia. And so that's where we went. Now I was not single. I was dating my now wife at the time, but we weren't engaged or anything. And so team was still playing, and the team was on the road, and I was flying to Philadelphia. So the team was like, hey, we need to fly someone out there to basically take you out of surgery, because you can't do that by yourself. You need someone with you and someone to fly with you, because you're going to be on drugs. You're having surgery like on the way back. So they flew me to Philadelphia, flew my mom to Philadelphia. And I may have told this story on here before, but it's a good one. So, you go in, you get the surgery. Now, part of your post-op is you're supposed to walk. You're not supposed to run, but you're supposed to just move a little bit. Now, not anything fast, not anything strenuous, but you're supposed to go for, I think it was like up to a mile walk, or like 5 to 10 minutes of a walk. So since we were in Philadelphia and my mom was there, I'm not playing. I know I had surgery, and I don't remember all of this. So this is her interpretation of the events, because I was on drugs after the surgery. I mean, you're under the knife, you're fully knocked out. It's not like when you just have topical anesthetic or local, like you're fully out. So apparently, as part of because her instructions were, we'll get him to go for a walk, and we're staying in downtown Philly. I was set on going to both Geno's and Pat's for cheese. Both places. I'm like, no, we have to try both of them. They're both famous and we got to go to both. And our walk can be like walking. We'll get the cab and we'll stop like a block or two away and like we'll walk to Geno's and we'll walk to Pat's. I don't remember any of this, but apparently that's what we did. So I guess I was so dead set on it that we went to Geno's, went to Pat's. I don't remember what they tasted like, anything. So kind of a failed experiment on that end, I guess, to compare the two of them. But I was still, my mom was worried that she wouldn't be able to get me on the plane because I guess I was just still loopy when we had our flight. Because it was like the surgery early in the morning, and then your flights, I think that night, like late that night, in the evening. Back to Minnesota. And so I was still all looped up on all the drugs. And I still don't remember any of this. Like, I don't remember going to the airport. Don't really remember the plane ride. But I guess I was just happy as a clam. But my mom was standing there thinking, like, they're going to think he's high and they're not going to let him on the plane. Like, they're going to look at him and be like, he's on so many drugs, they're going to kick him off the plane. So she, I guess, spent the entire time, like, through security and boarding the plane of just continually telling me to shut up and be quiet. just chittering away about whatever. But yeah, so that's the start of your rehab is you start just by walking. And that really was rehab for the first 2 weeks was you basically just get on a treadmill and slowly walk. Now you do like your ice, you'll do whatever your motion. Well, they'll start, your trainers will start doing some physical rehab, minor just movements and strengthening. It's not significant at first. You probably start ramping up at about 3 weeks, 21 days ish at that, where you start moving. Now, when I say ramp up, we're not like talking full bore or even skating at that point, but where you're either speed walking, like you're walking a lot quicker, or it starts to hit like a light jog. And then generally it was around 28 days for me, kind of that 1 month mark, where then you start to, okay, now you can kind of be on the ice and same thing, not go full bore, but you can start to stride a little bit, start to bend your knees a little bit more, put a little bit more stress on it, and then start building from there. So all in all, the season was over at that point, like because it took me out the rest of the year. But it ended up being like I'll call it 6 to 8 weeks till you kind of fully hit that. Okay, now you're ramped up and ready to start doing things aggressively.
But what were the total injuries? So it was two groin tears, 2 abdominal tears, and what was the other 2?
Let's
there was
just
6 altogether.
Yeah. Let me find it.
Oh, for Kane?
Kane,
I didn't see what. It's probably your hip flexor, I'd assume, because that's right the point where everything
2
attaches.
adductors, 2 groin tears, and 2 lower abdominal tears. That's what he said, right? So.
Yeah, both.
So it's your hip flexors, groin, and ab, kind of all the place where it joins. Now they all might be minor, but it's like if you take all of them at once. So that's, I'm assuming both sides. If there's 2, so there's tears on both sides. It's going to be two spots. So now mine was only on the left side. I only had the one side of it. And Brett B in on the nasty chat asks, Cass, were there any lasting effects from it, or did it fully take away any issues? Took away any issues for me, like no lasting effects. It was just the recovery time. And generally speaking, it's a minor surgery. Like it's not major reconstruction or anything. You're, unlike, when you get a hernia in your abs, they put a mesh over it to keep everything in. This is very different. Most surgeons that I'm aware of don't use a mesh on this because you're not, you basically suture, you tack it down. Essentially, you pin the muscles back down so they can reheal and reattach. If it's not like a full blown torn all the way off the bone, it's like, so you still have some attached. They'll just tack the torn parts back down and let it heal. But no long lasting issues from it.
Well, this Roland text, and you can text us here on 2 Guys and a Goalie on Edmonton Sports Talk, EST Afternoons with Hernan and Gage are coming up at 1:00 today. Will they repair all 6 things at the same time, or would this be multiple surgeries? They wouldn't do like right first and then let that heal, then go left type of thing?
Probably not. I assume probably not, because you're going to be going at the same speed anyways. It's different than, for example, someone that has like knee replacements, right? Where it's just like, you still having one knee that's done, having another knee, whether you're on crutches or, on one of those little wheelie things, like you still have the use of one knee to help you get around. This, because you generally can still walk afterwards, like you're not walking anywhere quickly, you're not doing things fast, but you still have mobility. I'm assuming they would do both at the same time. Now, Maybe you don't. If you're the Edmonton Oilers and you're wanting to stretch this thing out a little bit, you're like, hey, Doc, like, get on the do.
He's going to have 6 different surgeries for the 6 things that need to be repaired.
Once a month.
Keep opening the same incisions. But I would assume that you're going to do them both at once. That would make the most sense.
So the total recovery time, Cass, anywhere, like you said, 4 to 6, or would doing both sides probably be a little bit longer?
It might be a little bit longer in that instance. I mean, I truly can't imagine, which is probably why they haven't thrown him on or aren't putting him on LTIR right away, is where you're like, you're probably still looking at that 4 to 6 weeks. And you're like, okay, if he gets it before camp here and you have training camp and you have exhibition games, how many games during the regular season is he actually going to miss? You may not truly know yet. I mean, we'd have to look where we're at the 19th now. So if we look out, like 30 days from now, how many games will they have played at that point? Like probably 4 or 5.
Yeah.
I'd have to look at the actual schedule. I don't know if Dusty, you got to.
I'm going to bring it up right now. Yeah, bring it up right now.
I mean, they're a team that doesn't. The good thing about the Edmonton, they don't need him. They need him, but they don't require him. I think at that point of the season.
A month from now, they'd be playing their 6th game.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're kind of in that for the LTIR. You're like, is he going to get that long? If he has the surgery right away and he recovers quickly, technically he could be back at that point, which you're like, okay, we don't necessarily want to put him on LTIR yet because we have to hit the games cap for that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think it'd be a little bit longer, but.
It could be. Yeah. You're probably somewhere between that month and a half, realistically.
Well, why not? I mean,
that's not too bad. I saw some people online speculating that it might be like February. I know when I was talking to somebody around the team at the link, said because it's both sides, they expect him to be out for a significant amount of time. But
well, I at first I thought,
can't imagine.
That's the question I wanted to answer. Do you have to do one side before the other?
Yeah.
Because what was it? Sam Gagne.
The time, right?
But it was hip surgery, right? He had to get one side done and then heal so he could do the other one.
But that's different because that's the labral, like that's a hip labral tear, like that the Gagne had, and that's a totally different beast. Like that. So the difference between that and like a pubalgia, so with what Kane has, like it's muscle tears, but it's not inside the joint, right? Like you're not or inside like your hip socket joint. So it's a different joint. Like it is a joint like at the bottom of your pelvis that for those that are watching, like it sits like this, and there actually is some motion there. But it's not like your actual hips where it's like you have, the ball socket joints that has a labrum around it. So Gagne's in most guys with that type of surgery, that's a completely different type of surgery, way more invasive, way more to do, and your healing time of that is way longer. Like recovery is way longer of that than the pubalgia. Is not. Again, it's not like a 3 to 6 month recovery time. Like it's much shorter.
Couple of things coming out of your story. One, how long do you think you could hold your breath for, Gager?
Not for an NHL shift. I know that. That's. I mean, yeah, I could. I've always done those lung test things.
Yeah, they pop up with like social. It's like hold your breath here.
Yeah.
I do pretty well with those.
Well, then I think I'm an Olympic athlete again.
Yeah. I always imagine
the thing is it's not just sitting and holding your breath. Like you're moving.
Yeah, you're doing something where you need breath.
You need oxygen in your blood and in your system. And so it's like, and I remember doing this is like, if you were like in the defensive zone or like you were posted up in a position where you weren't moving, that's when you're like, and then just like get that breath in you and then hold your breath again before you got to start moving as quick as you can. Like it was nasty. Like it sucked. It took me 10 minutes to get out of bed every day because it's so locked up in the morning. And so like you can't fire your abs and like sit up. Like, so you're basically trying to maneuver yourself with your elbows in order to kind of use your elbows to turn you over. So you kind of fall off the bed. Like it was bad.
That's how I get up anyway.
I was listening to, do you know who Laird Hamilton is?
Nope.
He's a big wave surfer. He works out tons. He's like 60 years old and still rides like 80-foot waves. But he talked about his training and he said that he trains to that point where, because he'll be underwater and fighting waves.
Yes.
So he trains to the point where a full out, like anaerobic workout, but holding his breath. And it's just,
really,
it's really fascinating to hear. If you ever want to listen to a pretty cool dude. It's Laird Hamilton's awesome.
Really?
Yeah.
That is kind of intriguing.
Yeah.
The other thing from your story is I don't know if I've ever really had a legitimate good Philly cheese steak.
Oh,
you know?
Yeah. I got
so
hungry
good.
when.
I don't know if those ones were good.
Are you cooking the lasagna?
Yeah.
Okay. It's not on yet, is it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I didn't. Yeah. Gager's got a lasagna cooking over in the kitchen right now.
Well, I'm trying to impress the brass.
Italian center shop. Yeah.
What'd you do? Oh, I just whipped this up.
Would you like that? That's heavy cheese on that lasagna.
yeah.
Very good. So how long did you pop that in there for?
Well,
Is anybody monitoring? Do you need to go get a look?
I'll be
Okay,
fine.
all
I'll be
right.
fine. It'll be all right.
Yeah, he's the first guy to ever. Did you? Yeah.
Well, I found a
He's
toaster
using a
oven.
toaster oven. It's
Yeah,
all the
it's
time. He's
great.
cooking meals here at
Yeah.
work. It's
Great. Well,
It's awesome.
I thought we might even see Cass today, so I thought, well,
You're gonna have lasagna for Cass?
Yeah, well, yeah.
What a guy!
Yeah. Well, he was teasing coming in. I thought, for sure he'll come in today.
First the Estes and now this. Unbelievable, Cass.
I'm just ruining everything.
Unbelievable. Good discussion on Evander Kane. Thanks for sharing that insight, Cass. That was very helpful. If you're watching over on YouTube today, hammer the thumbs up for us here on Two Guys and a Goalie, and let it be known that EST Afternoons with Gager and Hernan Salas coming up here from 1 to 3. The Reed Wilkins Show, smash hit 3 to 6 right here on EST as well. Tune in, iHeart, EdmontonSportsTalk.com. There's a few text messages that we can certainly get to. The Oilers were on the ice today. Emberson getting that first crack alongside Darnell Nurse. Gager, I'll start with you. What does Emberson need to accomplish through preseason to have that spot next to Darnell Nurse when the puck drops
What does he
opening
have
night?
to accomplish?
Like what do you need to, like, does he just have to, we don't talk about him through all the preseason games he gets? Like, just fly under the radar, don't screw up. You're starting next to Darnell Nurse on opening night.
I'd like a few flashes in the pan, maybe a jump in the play with a good scoring. I don't think he has to score or anything. Providing good outlets for Darnell Nurse, see some sort of chemistry going, those hook and ladder kind of D-to-D passes. I think this is if you were to ask me this at the beginning of like when this all happened, I think the total plan was for him to play with Darnell Nurse. I want to see how they work together and if it's a good fit. It not always is, right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, he could be a good defenseman, but it might not be a fit with Darnell Nurse.
Yeah.
What do you think, Cass, about having two guys find some chemistry, having never played or really known anything about each other?
Yeah, it takes some time. Now, sometimes I think you have that click right away and guys just get each other and stylistically it just seems to fit, but it takes some time. Now, we're not talking about jumping right into the playoffs here. So I'm not like you've got time. Now, it may not be ideal if they don't have a ton of time to play together or you don't get to see through training camp and through the preseason, but the reality is you've got time in the regular season to test it out. And we're not looking like, this isn't heading into a new pairing, in an elimination game in the playoffs where like, these guys have never played together. I don't know what we have. Like you have a lot of time in the season to test it out. So I don't, I'm not concerned about that side of it. Now, concerned about, you want to make sure you can find someone that's going to be able to play there, but I'm not worried about the timing of having to do that, and freaking out about, okay, well, they might not get that much time in the preseason. Now, if we get into the season and you do have a couple of guys and they have a look with Darnell Nurse and nothing really works. Well, now we got a separate issue and everyone can panic at will and I'll be fine with it. But
aren't you excited for post-game shows? Now the best part of the post-game shows is you're going to roll in after a loss. The nasty chat's going to be losing their mind. Tommy will be sitting there like deer in headlights being like, oh, here we go again. And you'll have Hernan Salas completely ripping the team a new one. I don't envy you, Cass. You're going to be a very interesting spot with those two guys.
You know what? It's going to be great. And I'm so looking forward to having Hernan again, just because of that Latino heat, because he does get fired up, and after games, like he gets fired up, he's going to kind of bring up that energy for everybody a little bit, especially on the negative side, but on the positive side too. Like if they play really well, he'll be just as fired up. It'll make it exciting. So it's going to be fun. I guarantee you unless they make like a trade for a big name defenseman, like on that right side, we are going to constantly constantly, as you said, like anytime they lose, that is going to be one of the storylines that people are going to be texting in about, calling in about, messaging in about, that we're just going to have to deal with and fend off. We may have to put in a rule at some point where it's like we have 5 minutes to talk about it, and then we got to move on to something else. I've kind of been thinking that through. I'm like, okay, we can allot a little bit of time.
Give me your 5 minutes and move on. Yeah.
Get the 5 minutes and then move on and talk about other things.
Brett B is in, and like Brett B's like probably exaggerating, but he might, like, we could see it at some point. Brett B says, I'm looking forward to the first time someone texts in that Travis Dermott is better than Darnell Nurse. You know how the fan base operates, right?
Like you've seen Hernan. He's ready to explode in there too. He's can't wait for I can't wait for the post game show again. One of my guilty pleasures is taking the dog for a walk and listening back in the day to Tommy and Hernan when the Oilers were just complete garbage and listening to the rant. So it's going to be fun, Cass. I can't wait, buddy.
It's going to be great.
Like in the playoffs a lot, it was like I'd sit down after the game and this was not like, I'll put the station on my phone, or I'll put, this was on the TV in the basement. It was just like, here we go. After like game 3 of the Stanley Cup Finals, it's like, boom, let's see what the boys are. It's must watch.
Yeah, it is.
Must watch.
It's must watch.
Yeah, if you've not yet checked it out, I mean, you did last year. It was a huge show last year. But our Oil Stream pre and post game show, we've added Hernan Salas, who did it for years with Tom Gazzola, and it'll be Tommy Nanso and Matt Kassian pre and post game all throughout the Oilers season. And I have no problem saying it. That's the best post game show you're going to find in the city, because the other guy now works for us too. So,
yeah. We've cornered the market.
Sorry about that, everybody else. But yeah, I think it's going to be pretty good. All right, what about Draisaitl? Apparently with Skinner and Arvidsson. I know we talked about this, 3 weeks ago while I was probably doing some mix and match stuff. But Cass, what do you think of 2 new guys together with Leon?
I don't think it's going to take long to find chemistry. And I like that combination, at least as a first look. I mean, you have Arvidsson, who, plays that physical game, is going to dig pucks out, is going to battle to the front of the net. You have Draisaitl, who does everything, distributes the puck, and you have Skinner, who's a finisher and who can shoot and provide another shooting threat in that line. So yeah, I like the line. I'm not concerned to say, oh, these 3 guys have never played together. Well, they're going to get a chance. And similar to the defensive pairings, is like there's a whole bunch of games in front of them where they can find some chemistry and find some rhythm. And if it doesn't fit, you can mix things around and try something else. Now, we obviously don't want to see the start that they had last season as a team, where they just sucked for the first month and a half to 2 months of the year, and are one of the worst teams in the league. But as far as a fit as that line, like I just, there should be zero concern that, oh, these guys have never played together. It's 2 new guys for Draisaitl. Like, if you have creative offensive players and players who are able to read off of what Leon is doing, which I think Arvidsson and Skinner will be able to do, it's not going to take long. They're not going to need a long time together to be able to see if this is a line that can create some chemistry. Now, maybe it takes a couple of games, but I don't know. There's just there should be no concern of like, I don't know about that line. They never played together. We shouldn't have them out there. We should do different. Like, give me a break.
Welcome to post game 2, Cass. Now it's funny because exactly. We're gonna get that. Like, if that's a line that we start the season with, and like they lose game 1, that's that like. I guarantee you, and I don't guarantee very much, but I guarantee you we get in messages that are just like, oh, there's 2 new guys, you shouldn't have them playing together. And it's going to be like, what? It's one game. Freaking give me. You know what? I'll get a burner account so you don't know what's coming from me. No, but honestly, so the fan base, I get it. Your fans, there's never a ton of patience really with anything. You want everything to click right away. That's how it works. That's how fans work. I'm the same way with the Detroit Lions type of thing. But Gage, from a coach's perspective, I mean, what's a reasonable expectation? Like leave these guys together for 15 to 18 games, and if at that point you're still just like, man, I just feel like it's a round peg in a square hole with Skinner alongside Arvidsson, or like, how do you think a coach would deal with that from a patient's perspective?
Well, to me personally, I think that Knobloch has been the most patient coach that the Oilers have had over the past past 4 coaches. He's gone to Connor and Leon, but he goes back a lot of times in games. He's left certain line combinations together for way longer than I thought that most coaches have done over the past few years. So I think you'll see them try to work stuff out. He's mentioned that in and even there was a point when we were talking about D prior. I remember a point, I think it was in January or beginning of February, where he tried to mix up the D partners, right? There was a time when he put Desharnais with Nurse, I think, and he scrambled them up. Yep. And we were all saying, well, if someone gets injured, I mean, the fact that there was no injuries on the back end for the Edmonton Oilers last year was remarkable. And I think they were he was just trying to find something, and obviously he went back to what worked before, because I think there was some failures in there, but I think, again, with 3 guys that have got so much NHL experience, you allow them to try to figure it out, even if it doesn't work right off the bat.
If you want to chime in on this, 780-218-9999, 780-218-9999. Of course, if you're watching over on YouTube today, hammer the thumbs up for us and hit us up in the nasty chat. If you have any questions about the upcoming training camp here for the Edmonton Oilers, which is underway today, you can slide in and get that done. I am looking forward to Cass in the chat post game.
Oh,
too,
yeah,
right?
all caps Cass.
Yeah, all caps Cass.
Everybody.
Yeah, all Kassian. Yeah, Matt Kassian. We got a Matt Kassian type of night tonight. That should be good. Hey, the one thing we are seeing right now, and how it seems like it's kind of been around for a while, but a training camp for Knobloch, who came in last year. Gage, I don't know, or Cass, even you can speak to it. Did you ever have a coach take over partway through the season and then training camp hit next year? Or did either of you guys experience that anywhere?
Like you're saying,
I'm saying like a coach took over in like February and you got him for a bit and then it got to training camp. And I'm just wondering if he's a bit of a different guy because he's actually.
I did in Europe
the
one time. And yeah, he was kind of he came in and was everyone's buddy, but the start of the next season it was like
that's what I was wondering.
It was game on. He was a little bit harder on guys, right? So, and he got a chance to kind of more implement his systems and what he wanted to accomplish. I mean, it's not totally different, I think, from Europe to the NHL, because when you're there, it's just the team.
Knobloch was around for the majority of the last season too, right?
So, he was there for most of the year.
Yeah, it's not like he took over in March.
Yeah. And I'm like, obviously there's going to be adjustments on how they play. Everything is going to change a little bit, but I think for him personally, he's probably loving it because now he can implement what he wants to do. Because remember when he came in last year and he was like, we're going to change one thing, and maybe next week we'll change another thing. So that's got to be the biggest challenge coming in halfway, because you can't just revamp the whole system, or else no one knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, clearly it worked, and they within a goal of you were right there to win the Stanley Cup. So I can't imagine that it's like, there's still a whole bunch of things he needs to change now, like maybe a few things. But, the only thing to me that's going to be really different is just like, okay, well, how is he conducting his training camp? What types of skates are there? What type of training camp it's going to be. But my gut feeling, just even with where the team was, is it's not like he is going to come in and all of a sudden, you're moving to let's look at the Ottawa Senators, a Travis Green training camp, right? Where it's like, no, this is going to be high tempo, high intensity, really, really demanding. With how long the Oilers played, I just don't see that happening.
You kind of have to plan your camp around the team that you have, right? Because it's not like there's 9 jobs up for grabs here in Edmonton, right? I think that would be different in other places.
Yeah. And the coming into camp is completely different from the year prior, right? It felt like a missed opportunity last year or 2 years ago. Woodcroft seemed like, there was so much going on and trying to get back to, fix the mistakes that happened against the Golden Knights. And it seemed like just information overload to a point, right? And they just couldn't get the early captain skates. Now I think you just see a team that understands more about what it takes in the regular season and how you have to prepare yourself for the postseason. Completely different than last year, I think, this camp.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting. I'm excited to see some preseason games and get a look at Emerson and Brown. And I did say this morning we were asked on 3 questions too many today on the Nielsen show. One person or thing that you think could surprise, and it's always weird because you say it, and then if it happens, you're like, well, I wasn't really surprised. I guess it was kind of. But I'd be very interested to see here if Connor Brown has a really nice preseason. If people aren't like, hey, can you find a spot for him in the top 6? Just because he was penciled in there last year, prior to realizing that he was going to need 3/4 of a season to sort of get himself ramped back up. So if there's it's not so much me saying it, but if he scores 2 or 3 goals in preseason, the text messages are going to come in, or the chats are going to be there being like, hey, well, now with how deep this team is, you could put Nuge and Arvidsson on the third line, and you could play Connor Brown up. I'd be interested to see if any of that happens.
It's the Ty Ratty Award, I think, should be awarded at the end of preseason for the guy that's going to score 30 that plays 2 games in the regular team.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of that, because we haven't talked about it yet, and maybe I don't know, I could be jumping the gun here. You might have this in the GS construction.
Do you have a Ty Ratty story? Is that what's happening right now?
Oh. No. I was gonna go the Mike Hoffman route.
Let's get to it. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I got some Mike Hoffman stories that because he's still playing, I'm not going to share them on here right now. My wife has some Mike Hoffman stories as well that we're not going to get her to share on here either at this time. But it's an interesting one to me. I mean, I was a little bit surprised for the Edmonton Oilers to say that here's a guy who, Mike Hoffman is a player still. It's like he kind of has to play in your top 6.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's not a guy that you can sign to a PTO to league minimum or just above league minimum and have him play in your bottom 6. He's a top 6 type of player. As far as I've watched him recently anyways, I'm not like, here's a guy that, from a skill set and from a style standpoint is going to fit in well in your bottom 6. So it's an interesting one to me. And it may be a little bit of an interesting decision for Mike Hoffman to say to come in. Now, maybe he's looking at it that if he comes in and he gets an opportunity in preseason with Draisaitl or with McDavid and he produces well on a line with them, well, maybe then there's an opportunity for him. But I just kind of feel like with the additions that they made, again, like I was a little bit surprised to say that he's the type of player that you're going to be looking for at a PTO, as opposed to a guy that's like could be a 3rd line, 4th line centerman or right winger that you may have more of a need for as a guy that could be in another lineup. So a little bit of an interesting one to me. Clearly we'll have to see what happens with him, but it's not like he's an Evander Kane replacement stylistically. No. He's not a physical guy. He's a speedy guy that has some offensive capacity, but it was a little bit of a surprising move to me. I don't know what you guys think.
I don't see it being a fit. I said it earlier today. This is like a PTO. In fact, his age at the time would have fit better now too, because he's 34.
Yeah.
So and the Oilers are already one of the oldest teams in the league. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. This would have made more sense back in the day when we're like, man, they're 2 wingers short in the top 6.
Yeah.
Oh, this guy can play in the top 6. Maybe go look at him now. I don't necessarily know where Mike Hoffman fits in on this team. I mean, it could be the Oilers doing his agent a favor. He said, get him a few games in, see if somebody else will pick him up. I don't know. But
that's what I kind of alluded to, that this is a showcase for Hoffman to get it. If you look at it from his standpoint, he looks at the Oilers, that's a logjam. There's no cap space. Maybe there's a LTIR with Kane, but my best chance to look good is possibly get into a few exhibition games with either Leon or Connor McDavid playing in a top 6 role. Maybe I can put a few pucks in the net and then maybe open the eyes of a few other teams that are watching.
Yeah.
And maybe I can sign something there. That's what I think Hoffman's actual. I mean, him better, Cass, than obviously I did, and you can't repeat those stories. But if I was Hoffman, that's how I'm looking at this training camp.
Well, part of me wants him to not make the team, not get any team, retire immediately, so Cass can tell these stories. Because he's playing. Yeah. He's retired by November. That's story time, I guess. So I mean, that was an interesting one. I mean, Dermott, I think, makes more sense.
Way more sense.
That makes more sense. Cass, you think there's a spot for him on this team?
Potentially, if he comes in and has a good camp, there's potentially a spot there. This is a guy that could slide in and out of your lineup. So yeah, I mean, if he comes in and has a good camp, there's a shot. There's a shot.
That's a guy that you want to see a lot of preseason.
you might give him a good two-way deal.
Yeah.
Right. Like you give him some good guaranteed money on the AHL side where it's like, I don't know, something like 350 or 400,000 guaranteed with a two-way deal, so that if he is in Bakersfield, he's still earning good money down there that's acceptable to him. But you have him or the ability to call him up if you need and send him back down and keep him playing. So it's a little bit more of an intriguing one for me.
If you want to chime in on it, 780-218-9999 or hit us up over in the nasty chat here as well. Let's get into hire it or fire it for GS Construction. They are hiring right now. Become a part of their great team today by visiting gsconstruction.ca or their page on indeed.ca. For the past 50 years, the foundation of GS Construction has been built on efficiency, quality, and safety. Take your career to the next level. Join the team at GS Construction so you too can bother us on our way into offices around the city. But somebody's got to do the job. And I don't know what they were doing here, but it didn't take that long. It was like 3 days. So
it was very efficient.
Moving quickly.
Thanks,
Moving
Sandman.
quickly. Good work, Sandman. All right. Jeff Skinner will play more with McDavid than Draisaitl this year. Hire it or fire it.
Fire it.
I think they just like the Nuge there too much.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't.
Fire it. Nuge is a fit. Like I think you have Skinner and you got him to be the guy in that second line with Draisaitl. Like that to me that's why you did it. So yes, hire it. And if he's not playing with Draisaitl, it probably is because Nuge slid to center and you're overloading that top line. So yeah, he gets more minutes with Draisaitl for sure.
All right, question number 2. I don't know if you guys saw this today, but Austin Matthews led the stretch after his first skate as captain. This is big news. Being the captain of the Maple Leafs is the highest pressure job in hockey. Hire it or fire it. I would personally say a non-French speaking Montreal captain probably is the most pressure. But what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to fire it. Montreal's more so because just with the bilingual factor.
Yeah.
Right? And
remember Saku for the longest time had to work and work.
Yeah. And even I think PK started learning a little French. Yeah. They loved him for it.
Is Suzuki learning a little French?
I don't know if he is or not.
Not sure.
But I know Carey Price sometimes answered questions in French, and it was like, oh my God, he spoke French.
Yeah.
Like, if I ever played for the Canadians, like I did go to French immersion, and I have mentioned that I do speak a little French.
You do parlez-vous français?
Yeah, bien sûr. I would definitely try to speak French.
Cass, you speak French?
Nope.
Nah, me neither.
German.
I watched Habs games in French growing up.
Oh,
religiously.
Of course you did.
It's the only way I could watch
it to
them.
Channel 7.
Yeah.
I would change it to Channel 7. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
Steve Shutt down the right side.
Troisième, third period, it was a lot of fun growing up. That's probably the only reason I took French class in junior high school was because they had the French Montreal Canadiens magazines in there, and I could go into French class and look at all the pictures of the Habs. And sometimes I would steal those magazines from French class. I don't know if anybody else would miss out on them. But Cass, highest pressure job, Leafs captain in the league. Hire it or fire it?
I got to hire it. Yep, I got to hire it. I think it is. I think Montreal will be close second, being a non-French guy there. Yeah, that would be close. But yeah, I got to hire it. We all know how crazy that world is.
What do you guys think of, just to follow this up on Austin Matthews, like if the Leafs fail again,
fail?
Get to the first round of the playoffs and miss again. Okay. Does the tide turn a little bit against Matthews because he's the captain now? Like people just seem to always love Matthews, and they'll bitch about Marner and they'll bitch about Nylander, and I know Matthews is Matthews. So, but does that change now because he's the leader of this group? Kind of has to,
definitely.
Doesn't it? What's the point of being the?
I mean, he's skated by on. By his standard, poor playoff performances compared to his regular season totals. Like he has to be the reason that the Leafs get passed around, or a major factor, I think. Even if he goes on and scores 70 goals this year, if they get to the playoffs and get bounced and he has like 3 points, I think you have to start blaming him. He's their highest paid player. He's their captain now. It all falls on his shoulders. He has to show that he can take over a series, not unlike a lot of other star players. And last year it was Pasternak. He was the best player in that series, and he scored the game winner and series winner.
All right. One more. Two more, actually. Well, the one's kind of been ruined since I came up with it this morning. But this one. Vegas is the biggest threat to the Oilers in the division. Hire it or fire it, Cass?
Ooh. Biggest threat in the division. Yeah, I think they still have to be.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm going to hire it.
Yeah, I'm not overwhelmed by them, but I think nothing against the Canucks. Kings, we'll see. It still has to be. Oh, it's almost, I don't want to say it's by default because it's disrespectful.
Yeah.
But
that's
it's kind of by default, though, right? Like,
it definitely is.
Yeah.
I hire it. You just look, it's the hardest D-core in the Pacific Division for the Edmonton Oilers to go up against. Petrangelo, Hanifin, and Theodore, McNabb, Whitecloud,
great blue
Haig,
line, man.
Just
great blue line.
That is
great blue line.
That is an unreal blue line that
we
that's
had
going
just
to be
like
very
4
tough.
messages in a row that came in on the nasty chat that all said the Oilers are the biggest threat to the Oilers. Which,
Yeah,
That's probably the truth.
probably true. Yeah.
Last one that I was going to ask, but we don't need to now because I believe it was announced today that it was going to be his final pro hockey season. I was going to say Jaromir Jagr will play 40 years of professional hockey. He's in year 37, picked up an assist yesterday.
Saw it. Yeah.
You see that assist?
Yeah.
He's kind of just coasting around. It's like men's league
Well,
for Jagr.
it's Division II Czech league,
Yeah.
which is probably still a really good league. But yeah, he's down. Like he gets the puck down low,
Yeah.
quick little passes, darts in
Still
and out.
has a huge ass.
Yeah, it's great.
So anyway, it looked like he's going to wrap it up. I was going to say he plays until he get 40 years in, but he's at 37, and I guess that's going to be the
I mean,
the
that's
last
his
one.
team too, right?
Yeah, it's a big boss move. Like, he owns the team. He's also their first line right winger. Probably gets as much power play time as he wants.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I mean,
that's-
I don't think it's his last year. He'll come back.
That's what I think. I think in like March, it'll be like, Jagr's going to play a 38th year. Like,
and even then, he'll probably say, "I'll play 5 games next year."
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
for the big derby games because I guarantee
They still do those, right?
They still
Like,
do
yeah.
it. Like there's probably a team that they have a huge rivalry against, just to put like a home at home or something. He'll play in that series. Yeah.
A great episode today, boys. Hockey season is back. You know what I think we do next week? I think next week we put together, this thing probably go top 30 players in the league this year. Hey, we'll go top 30. So send me your top 30 lists. I'll tabulate them. And then I'll just pick whatever I want on the list, and we'll go through it starting next Tuesday and Thursday. So yeah, let's get our top 30s in by Monday, and then we'll sort through it, and we'll give you the top 30 players in the National Hockey League next week here on Two Guys and a Goalie. Brought to you by GS Construction. If you're looking for work, man, GS would be a great place to do it. And with their Next Up Person program at GS Construction, it's not just a job; it is a career. We've got EST afternoons coming up right away. If you're watching on YouTube, turn on autoplay. That'll take you right on over to Hernan Salas, who sits here. Gager stays there. You got EST afternoons, and then coming up from 3 to 6 today, right here and only here on Edmonton Sports Talk, the Reed Wilkins Show. Reed Wilkinson, glue guy. Reed was down at the rink today. He'll have all the latest from training camp. Tommy Gazzola is going to hop on. He was at the rink too. He's going to hop on with Hernan and Gager today as well. So it'll be great afternoon of content here as the Oilers hit the ice for training camp. Thank you very much for checking out Two Guys and a Goalie. Stick around on TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, and at EdmontonSportsTalk.com.